Welcome back to Your Property Empire. Now, joining me on the show tonight is Nathan Birch from Be Invested, and we've just been joined by the great Charles Tarby, Chairman and owner of Century 21 Australasia.
Australasia, and Papua New Guinea.
And Papua New Guinea.
No, it's already there. But
your real estate network's expanding more than Nathan's personal property portfolio.
Ask me next couple of weeks what the office in Port Moresby's like, and I'll tell you all about it.
Well, the Gold Coast property market can be a very volatile market at times, with lots of high-rise construction and many overseas buyers. So how's it performing at the moment, and how would you compare it to investing in a more traditional Sydney market? So Nathan, you've been buying quite a bit up there, and I'm sure Charles is going to have some comments. Why are you looking up there?
I saw personally an opportunity there. Like when I'm acquiring properties, building my own personal portfolio and that for clients, what I look for is opportunities to buy stuff in a depressed state. So what I mean by that is that I'll go and buy a nice jumper, a nice winter clothes in summer. And
so basically you're contrarian with everything you do.
Exactly. And from that perspective, what I found over the course of the last, since the GFC, about 2009, the market softened there, and it went pretty flat for a period of years and backwards. And I'm picking up properties now cheaper than what they were selling for pre-GFC. But in that time, the interest rates have dropped to the lowest point. The rents have risen, so they're very good, attractive yields. Still picking up 8-9% on the Gold Coast, southeast Queensland, Brisbane, all those sort of areas.
Which is a massive yield.
Yeah.
Charles, you've got offices all around Australia. Do you see those kind of trends all the time as soon as things are changing?
You can see it fairly well in advance if you're watching it every week. The problem is most of us don't watch it every week, and so you jump when you hear the news from Tom's reporters about what's going on. The Gold Coast itself has been put down for year after year after year, and even when the Commonwealth Games were announced there, people were still sceptical that maybe it might get back to where it could be better, but even then, during the Commonwealth Games announcement, they still sort of were talking the Gold Coast down, and it is moving. It is definitely moving.
It's interesting that you say that, Charles. Going back in the last week of February, I noticed from calling a lot of agents up there in Queensland that something interesting was happening, is that the agents are saying, look, the properties are sold, they're under contract, etc. And that week I printed out about 1,000 properties and called 1,000 properties that fit my criteria. And out of that, there was only about 80 of them that had not sold. They hadn't put under contract on the net. And from that, there was only about 4 or 5 or 6 that were good enough for us to actually purchase. Fast forward, say, 2 months where we are today, 3 months, what I'm finding is that owners are pulling out of properties because they're fearing that they can sell it for more.
They can get more.
Yeah.
Well, no, traditionally a lot of the buyers from south of the border in Melbourne would buy on the Gold Coast and on the Sunshine Coast. And because the Melbourne market has had a strong capital growth in the last few years, those people have gained equity that they now use to go and buy on properties, while theirs have increased, have actually sat still and in fact gone backwards in some cases. So why wouldn't you? And that's what started to happen.
And probably a lot of viewers would be asking, so Australia's a big country, there's so many different suburbs.
Yeah.
How do you know to look at the Gold Coast versus looking at Adelaide or Perth or Darwin or wherever else?
I look at the infrastructure and everything that's around it. So looking at the market there, people were paying. Today there was about 3 properties that are secured that the owners had paid like 30,000, 40,000 more only 5 years ago, and here we are today picking up cheaper in a better market. There's
so you can literally go onto RP data, see what the recent how it was 7 years ago, and then see where it's nice and close.
Exactly. And I'm talking about picking up properties, 3-bedroom, modern townhouses, 15 minutes from Surfers Paradise. You've got an abundance of tenants there. Purchase price $250, rent for $350 a week. You've got depreciation, everything.
It doesn't take much, does it? Just going outside of those areas to find it, especially on the coast. But the infrastructure, Nathan said, is really the key thing. You can go out and buy property in small country towns, get a massive rental return and no capital growth. And so that's a great balance between the two.
Exactly.
It's interesting because Nathan showed a couple of properties before, like 100 or 200 grand.
Yes.
How does an agent, if they're charging, say, 2% normal fee, how do they make a living selling a 100 grand property?
Well, I guess those agents in particular, some of them might have larger management portfolios or property management portfolios, but it is a turnover thing. And it's like an office that I have in the system, one of our most successful offices is in Fairfield, and it turned over significantly enough to make it into the top 5 out of hundreds of offices across Australasia, and they would have been selling apartment after apartment after apartment to get there. So you can do it, but it definitely takes a lot more work.
Interest rates are going to go up at some point in time. How do you see that changing the market?
Personally, I've been following the interest rates very closely for 5 years, looking at cash rate futures and all those sorts of things, which, as an investor, I think you need to look more than just outside the property market. You need to look at, economy in general. I personally think I called for 2 reductions by the first half of this year. I'm sitting on the fence, probably 60% chance of another 0.25% by the end of the year. I doubt it will go lower than that. I think it's where it'll sit. I've got a 2% confidence personally. Don't go fix your rates, everyone, or anything like that, based on what I'm saying here today. But I actually have a very strong confidence that it will not go up anytime soon. When I'm talking anytime soon, I think in 12 to 24 months.
Well, there are other influencing factors, and that's what the problem is. This is why APRA's in the game, because interest rate had to come down to stimulate the economy, and in doing so it stimulated the wrong areas, so they've stepped in. So the chance for going up is pretty low at the moment.
But do you see, is that the main catalyst?
Is that the right way to say it? The chances of it going up is pretty low? I get it around the wrong way all the time.
But I mean, we're saying that potentially APRA changes haven't made that much of a difference, unless you've got a different opinion. But is it purely interest rates that's going to be the catalyst that's going to change, say, the Sydney market?
No, I think the Sydney market is still strong because people want to live in Sydney, people want to buy in Sydney. It's a great place to invest. Your growth is guaranteed in Sydney, provided you stay in there for a longer period of time. Some people would have bought last year and had magnificent growth, but we all know it's a long period of time, and that's what you do, just hang on. And so whenever they buy, it doesn't matter, as long as they just hang on.
Nathan, you see a lot of kind of typical Australians that come and see for advice.
Yeah.
What do you see are the most common mistakes that people are making?
So people just get too emotional. They get too emotional and they go, I've got to buy a property, it's got to be nice, it's got to have, a nice backyard, it needs to be on the high street. You need to look just purely at the numbers. You don't go into business and say, this is a nice shop, let's go set up a shop in here. You have to treat your property investing like a business, and it comes back down to all the numbers. And I constantly say it, and I've said it for the last decade, you need to make sure you're buying properties that are below market value, you have a good cash flow, and, they've got upside for growth. So.
You're absolutely right about the emotional side. You can get on a plane from Sydney to Brisbane right now, and I guarantee you there'll be couples sitting on that flight going up there to buy something off the plane.
Yeah.
Now, this is your job, though. As agents, you're working for the vendor, aren't you? You want to get the buyers emotional.
Well, it's all part of the process, you do, but from an investor's point of view, you've got to remove that factor, because if you get too caught up in something, as we all know, you buy something you love, that's not going to necessarily make you any money.
Now, while we're looking at the numbers, let's take a look at the clearance rates.